Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to have you here today. We've got a great one for you. Our goal for this session is to take some truly microscopic biological processes and translate them into clear, tangible concepts. We're exploring the very blueprints of life. Now, considering the sheer complexity of the human body, we're talking trillions of cells working in this perfect symphonic harmony. It is absolutely fascinating that we can now actually decipher the fundamental code running the entire operation. Recent breakthroughs have made what was once literally invisible not only understandable but highly actionable. So today, we are getting a front-row seat to the molecular machinery that builds us.
Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever looked in the mirror and seriously wondered, why you have your mother's nose or maybe your grandfather's height? Why do kids so often resemble their parents? And zooming out a bit, why do people across the world have such vastly different eye colors, heights, and physical traits? Well, for most of human history, basically before the discovery of DNA, this was an absolute mystery. People could obviously see the statistical unlikelihood of our unique traits being purely random, but the actual mechanism, totally hidden. It's really one of the oldest, most profound questions in human history. How exactly does life pass on its characteristics?
So that brings us to Section 1, the mystery of you, unlocking the secret behind our traits.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Section 2, Life's Instruction Manual, Decoding Our DNA.
To truly answer those profound questions about human traits, we have to transition away from the visible world and zoom way, way down to the microscopic level. The ultimate answer really boils down to one foundational concept: our genes. So what is a gene? Well, it's essentially a set of biological instructions. More specifically, it's a segment of DNA that contains the precise coding required for building and maintaining an organism. And when we say coding, we mean an actual language made up of base pairs: adenine, cytosine, thymine, and guanine. These tiny, tiny sequences of letters are exactly what help the cells inside your body perform incredibly specific, necessary functions to literally keep you alive.
And this brilliantly illustrates the relationship between DNA and genes. I want you to think of your DNA as a massive, heavy instruction manual for your entire body. In that analogy, your genes are the individual chapters within that manual. Each single gene, each chapter, contains the specific information needed for a particular biological function or characteristic. And to give you a sense of the sheer scale of this, the human genome has around 20 to 25,000 protein-coding genes. That's tens of thousands of individual chapters, meticulously organized inside nearly every single cell in your body, just waiting to be read.
Moving right along to Section 3, Building Blocks and Proteins, from Instructions to Physical Reality.
Now that we know what these biological chapters are, how does the body actually read them? Well, it starts with the exact instructions provided by the genes. Those instructions are then rapidly transcribed and translated to build proteins. Finally, those newly built proteins are dispatched, kind of like specialized biological workers, to execute specific tasks. And remember, this is not a static process. This perfect chain of cause and effect is happening inside you right now at a staggering scale. Millions of instructions are being read and executed every single second just to keep your bodily systems functioning in harmony.
So the crucial point is that genes help build proteins, and proteins are the essential molecules doing all the heavy lifting in your biological factory. They take on some seriously vital jobs. They help the body grow new tissue. They furiously repair your body when you suffer an injury, literally actively stitching tissues back together at the cellular level. And they act as this massive logistics network, transporting vital substances like oxygen across your various systems. Without proteins flawlessly executing the commands written in your genes, all that complex biological data would just be unread potential. Because of this incredibly efficient pipeline from gene to protein, our genes directly influence our inherited traits. When we talk about inherited traits, we're talking about specific outcomes dictated by this biological instruction manual. For instance, a tiny, tiny alteration in the protein coding within your genes is exactly what leads to one person having brown eyes and another having blue eyes. The exact same microscopic mechanism determines your hair type, your height, and even your specific blood group. It is a direct, fascinating line straight from invisible code to physical reality.
But actually, hold on. There is a really crucial caveat here that we absolutely cannot overlook. While your genes provide the baseline instruction manual, our traits aren't based entirely on what's written in those chapters alone. Environmental factors play a massive role in how those traits actually develop in the real world. This dips into the profound field of epigenetics, which is essentially how behaviors and environment can cause physical changes that affect the way your genes work. Factors like sunlight exposure, diet, and even chronic stress levels constantly interact with your instruction manual, basically turning certain genes on or off over the course of your lifetime.
Which brings us to Section 4, Decoding Health and Disease, Why Genes Matter for Our Future.
Let's zoom back out to the macro level for a second. Understanding this microscopic instruction manual has massive real-world impacts, especially for human health and medical research. I mean, why do genes matter so much to doctors? Because mutations, or unexpected changes in these genes, can sometimes contribute to diseases. By studying genes, scientists are fundamentally revolutionizing medical care. This research allows us to profoundly understand complex health conditions, develop totally new approaches to diagnosis, and create highly targeted treatments. We are actively entering an era of personalized medicine, where treatments and preventative care can literally be uniquely tailored to your specific genetic makeup. It's a real game changer.
But, as you might guess, there is a major logistical hurdle here. The human genome is billions of letters long. Human brains simply cannot read or process millions of biological instructions on their own. Enter bioinformatics. This is the modern detective tool of genetic research. Today, scientists are studying genes using vast computational power. They process massive collections of genetic data through advanced algorithms to figure out what our DNA is actually telling us. Without these supercomputers, the sheer volume and complexity of our biological data would remain an unsolvable cipher.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the incredibly balanced approach it reveals in modern bioinformatics. When mapping out the primary goals of this field, the effort is split remarkably evenly. About 34% of the focus goes toward discovering new patterns within the vast genetic code. Another 33% is specifically dedicated to identifying the exact genetic mutations that might be responsible for causing diseases. And the final 33% is aimed at broadly supporting ongoing biological research. It's just a perfectly calibrated digital assault on our most complex biological mysteries.
And our final stop, Section 5, the language of life, the basic units of biological information.
As we wrap up this explainer, we can see that our journey today has taken us from wondering about our parents' inherited traits all the way down to microscopic manuals and finally to the massive supercomputers analyzing our billions of base pairs. Genes are the foundational language of our existence. They're the basic units of biological information telling living organisms exactly how to function, which leads us to a provocative final thought. How will decoding the language of life change how we respond to our environment and evolution? Because ultimately, understanding how organisms function doesn't just explain our past, it will fundamentally shape our future. Thank you so much for exploring the blueprints of life with me today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.